So what I think about this particular incident in classic rock history is that it's not so much about a guitar duel between Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton as it is about a contrast between American and British blues. And I think this was the historic moment when American blues kind of dethroned British blues.
Like, he rehearsed 2 days and he had like an hour and a half act. Great songs, and the band was together. Still, he could have been up there on his own, he didn't really need anybody else. He could play on his own and do it perfectly.
Welcome to Music Guru, where rock and metal never die and every classic note still matters. On a cool London night in 1966, a rising American guitarist walked onto a stage uninvited. He plugged in, turned up, and without warning, launched into a blistering version of Killing Floor.
I mean, a very brave person who would do that. As far as I remember, he plugged into my bass amp. He did a version of Killing Floor, and it blew us all away.
Hendrix just rages through it, and does all his tricks and stunts, the kind of things that people like Little Richard and the Isley Brothers hated him doing. He plays the guitar behind his head, between his legs, with his teeth.
Eric Clapton, God himself, watched from the wings, and, as the legend goes, he was never the same. But what really happened that night? Did Jimi Hendrix truly kill God? Or is this one of rock's most misunderstood myths? Here's the story as it's usually told. In late 1966, Chas Chandler, former Animals bassist turned Hendrix manager, brought Jimi to a Cream gig at London's Regent Street Polytechnic. During a break, Chandler asked if Jimi could jam. Cream agreed, probably expecting some polite blues noodling. Instead, Hendrix exploded into Howlin' Wolf's Killing Floor, a song that Clapton himself had called too difficult to play. The myth? Clapton walks off stage, visibly shaken. Backstage, he lights a cigarette and says to Chandler, "You never told me he was that effing good." From that night on, Hendrix was a London sensation and Clapton, God, was human again. So let's ask the question directly. Did Hendrix really outplay Clapton that night? Or was something else going on? One viewer on this channel offered a compelling theory in the comments section. Hendrix didn't so much outplay Clapton as outperform him. Volume, chaos, showmanship, teeth on strings, humping the amp. Theatrics that overwhelmed rather than sounds that impressed. And here's the thing. That version of the story doesn't appear in most books or interviews or videos, but could it still be true? Think about the London scene at that time. Clapton was revered for his tone and touch. He was the high priest of blues purity. Hendrix, on the other hand, was something else entirely. Louder, looser, raw, unfiltered. To many in the audience, Hendrix wasn't just playing notes, he was making noise. Glorious, chaotic, confusing noise. Even his future bandmate Noel Redding later said, most people didn't understand what he was doing at first. So maybe Clapton didn't lose a guitar duel, maybe he watched the blues get set on fire. What we do know is this. Within weeks, Hendrix was the most talked about guitarist in London. Within months, Cream had shifted gears musically, going heavier, weirder, and more experimental. Clapton, in later interviews, often spoke about Hendrix with admiration, but also a hint of lingering trauma. That night meant something to Clapton, to Hendrix, and to music. So, did Hendrix kill God? Maybe, or maybe the legend is less about a duel and more about a moment, a single song that marked the end of one era and the explosive birth of another. Hendrix didn't need to be better than Clapton. He just needed to be new. And that might be the most rock and roll thing of all. So what do you think happened that night? Was Clapton outplayed or just outflanked by raw spectacle? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you love classic rock stories that go deeper than the headline, make sure you hit that button and subscribe. So what I think about this particular incident in classic rock history is that it's not so much about a guitar duel between Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton as it is about a contrast between American and British blues. And I think this was the historic moment when American blues kind of dethroned British blues for a moment after the Brits had picked up American blues that had fallen by the wayside in America. So this was almost like it's coming full circle on British soil, and Jimi Hendrix was the man that it was all centered on. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.